Welcome to the second or part 2 of the series of videos where we're looking at the original case study for Pacific Trails Resort and using cascaded style sheets to make some more enhancements, beauty if you wish, to the websites. The original page for the previous case study looks something like that one, with the basic white background and the black headings, different sizes, bullet points and such. This is the index page, and when we apply a cascaded style sheet to that, it will look like this example where you've got the black background with the white letters instead of the other, and it just makes it have a more enhanced appearance. So you can look at the comparisons. I'll try to pull both of these up here where you can see them both at the same time if I can do that. If I have trouble with it, I'll do it later. Thank you for your patience as I'm trying to, I think I accidentally closed one of these. Let me pull this up real fast so I can make sure visually that the review is there for you. Here we go. I think I have it right here. Again, thanks for your patience as I've got many screens going right here. You can see the difference between the style of the two pages. And the way these black and blue backgrounds and colorful letters and stuff happen is because of something called a cascaded style sheet that we did earlier in the previous video. And if you need to go back and look at part 1, you're welcome to do so. Now we're going to apply that cascaded style sheet. It's like, okay, here's this style sheet that we called Pacific.css. How do we apply this to the web pages that we already have? How do we make this color happen? It's typed. How do we make these sheets talk to each other? But we'll do that by looking at the directions in your textbook, and if you look at those directions under task 3, the home page in your book, you'll see the directions they have. You basically open the home page, index.html, and you just make some changes to it. And it gives those directions. I'm not going to leave these on the screen because there's only so much visual that I can put up here at one time for the very visual learners. So I will pull up the original index page that was on here. And again, remember that the wireframe, the design for the page was something like this. We have the page, we have a header section, we have a nav section, we have a footer at the bottom, and then for the main content below the links, we have something called a content section, which we'll code in the next chapter, and inside that content section we have something called contact. And sometimes instead of using these specific names, you may see the word div. Basically, a header, a nav, content, contact, footer. These are just divisions, or divs for short, of our web pages. And we divide our web page into sections like this so that we can tell the computer how to render or display or enhance or color or align these sections individually. Now, to make that cascaded style sheet, this guy right here, in order to make it align or talk to the index page and Yurt page that we already have, we have to use something that's in the very first instruction, task 3, the home page, letter A. What we have to do inside the head section, now again, don't get head and header mixed up. Inside the head section right here, we have to put in a statement called a link statement. It's a very standard kind of statement. It has a tag that is called link. So I'll go ahead and put this in, and hopefully this is easy for you to read with my left-handedness. And the first part of this is always the same with every page we do. You can put this stuff in any order. It depends on your book. You can put it either way. The reference is called style sheet. Now this has to be exactly right. REF equal, and in quotation marks the word style sheet. Now your book may have these in reverse, but it's perfectly fine. The next part, href, the hyperlink reference. What is the name of the sheet we're tying in here? That is called Pacific.css. So I'll put Pacific right here, and unfortunately I'm going to have to erase this other stuff in order to allow you to see it. So thank you for bearing with me. It's going to be Pacific.css in quotation marks, and then we'll have the closing tag. We don't have a paired tag with link, but you'll have that statement inside the head section. Now you'll do this with the other page. This is the index page right here that I'm using, and you'll do the same thing for the Yurts page. Without this section, your style sheet will not change the look of your web page. So for this index web page and for the Yurts web page, if you don't have this link statement in there, your file will continue to look like that one instead of like this one. Okay, so let's go back and we'll go to the next step. Now we're going to be inside the body section. Now everything you code, everything, headers, headings, nav sections, H2, paragraphs, unordered lists, everything has to be contained inside the body tags. Now, it says in part B to assign the div that contains the main page content to an ID named content. Now, here's what we're doing. When we go after the navigation section, here's the head right here. Here's the body of the document right here. The body starts right here and goes all the way down in the index page, and it goes all the way down to where we have the end tag that also says body. So this is all the content that we're actually displaying. Sorry about that. That's all connected. So we want this whole area, everything inside the body, to be associated with an ID called content that we'll make later. Again, remember the way the wireframe was designed. We had the header, we had the footer, we had the nav, and then this main area, the bulk of the web page, was in something called content. So what we have to do is we have to take this content ID and use it later on. Now, where the book did this in not the best teaching method in my opinion, I think what they should have done, and you can even code this if you want to, what I think they should have done in this CSS style sheet is they should have gone ahead and created something, and you're welcome to do this, it won't hurt a thing. You can actually create an ID called content, and put the little opening and closing braces there, fill it in later, and you'll be making one also called contact. The reason I'm putting the pound symbol there is it said to use the word ID and not the word class, and I've gone over this ID and class set of definitions in my worksheets that I gave you recently. So you can add these to your specific CSS sheet if you want to. You will sooner or later anyway. We're just not putting anything there. So in order for us to associate this content ID and eventually the contact ID with this page, what I have to do is I have to tell the computer to use this particular definition, content, inside my div. And to do that, what I do is I go to my inside my body, and I'm going to use a different color to illustrate this. I will put something in there called a div tag, special definition. I'm going to put something in here in just a second. Now, because there is a div tag just inside the body tag, I'm going to put a matching one down here at the bottom, right in front of the closing body tag. So I'll put one right here. Remember, they need most tags need to pair up, and div is one of them. So I've got it right there. So you'll notice how, hopefully this will help you out, you'll notice how these guys will kind of pair up with each other also, and they're completely contained inside of the body tag. Now, it's just a regular division in my web page. It's just a section in my web page unless I associate it with this thing called content. Because it's an ID, and that's listed for you in the section B of the instructions, because it's an ID, what I will do right here inside this first div, I will put ID equals, and in quotation marks I'll write the word content. Now make sure you're doing content and not contact. Alright, that takes care of that part, and we'll define that later. You won't see any changes when you actually run this website, but you will in the next chapter. I believe it's in the next chapter. Okay, now we'll go to part C, and we're going to use something else that was defined for you in this chapter. We're going to find the company name called Pacific Trails Resort in the first paragraph below H2. The first paragraph below H2 is this area right here. There's H2 right there. In the first paragraph below H2, here's the paragraph, we're going to find something called Pacific Trails Resort. Now what we're going to do here is have a special emphasis on the words Pacific Trails Resort. Now let's look at that paragraph before I actually define it with you and see how that looked. You may not be able to see this on this screen. I may have to make this a little bit larger, and hopefully I can zoom on this where you can see it a little bit better. Do you notice right here where Pacific Trails Resort has a different color, kind of a bluish color compared to the rest of the black letters? That's what we're going to do. Now normally we might do a bold or italics or something like this, but we're going to do this through a definition that we've already made. And if you remember, we have a definition, and it's mentioned in Part C. We had a definition that we did in our CSS sheet that is called resort, and that's right here. And because this is a class, we're going to use this particular class, and normally you would put class, well, you actually will put class right here, but because this is a very tiny section, just a few words in our web page, what I'm going to do, according to the directions, is I'm going to set this off by using something called a span tag. And I'm going to have to leave enough room so that I can write this out since I'm doing this by hand. So I'm going to surround these words with a tag called span. So right inside a paragraph, I'm going to do one. I'll use a different color, see if this will help out. And I'll call it span, S-P-A-N. And I'll do a closing tag that matches it. So what's going to happen right here, this section right here is going to make Pacific Trails Resort a different color. Now how do I do that? I have to associate the word span with one of those classes or IDs that's in my CSS sheet. The one called resort has a period in front of it, which means I use the word class and not the word ID. So what I will do right here is I'll put span class equals, I may have to squeeze this in here, so bear with me, equals, and in quotation marks I'll put the word resort and enclose those quotes as well. Those quotes should be inside that tag, by the way. And we're doing the same thing later on. There's another occurrence of this down in the contact area, and we'll do the very same thing right here where it says Pacific Trails Resort right here. Let me show this to you. Where this is set up, I'm going to put another span exactly like that one inside. Now I won't do the whole thing right here, so again, if you're one of those exact words kind of people when you're watching the video, I'm not doing every part of the assignment for you, so please understand that if you're visual only. So I'll put span right there, and I'll continue typing that definition just like I did earlier. I'm doing exactly the same thing that I did just a second ago, and that way we're going to have a special kind of emphasis. So what will happen when the computer sees, and we'll put the little end tag right there, when the computer sees the words Pacific Trails Resort, it's going to associate that with this class that is called resort. And again, be sure you fill that in the right place right here. Resort, if you remember that definition in the CSS style sheet, it says to make that a different color. And again, that's the reason that you'll see Pacific Trails being a slightly different color from the rest of the statement in both places. That's the spam class. That's Part C in the home page. We do the same thing in Part D. Now in Section E, we're going to look at the div that we've already created. Now right here, there's a div that's being created. I'll surround this as best I can. This blue marker. Let me do this again because I might confuse you here. We have a div marker, not the big div that we did earlier with content, but we have one right here that has the contact information, the name of the resort, the address and phone number, and city and state. It says in Part E to assign that div to an ID named contact. And again, I've defined that right here. Again, don't get contact and content mixed up. Because it's an ID, has a pound symbol there, I'm going to take the div right here, and I'm trying to get this, I'm having to get away from my marker mode and from text mode. Word gets a little bit tricky with this sometimes, especially when I'm writing a video, so I thank you in advance for being patient with me in this regard. And I'm kind of fighting this a little bit right now. Let me see if I can get this to work in a different area. Here we go. Okay, I got it. Alright, so what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to put inside the div, I'm going to put ID equals contact in quotation marks. I hope this doesn't look too junky right now. I'm going to just erase this temporarily so you can see exactly what I'm doing. And that div will be paired up, of course, with this one. I hope this is not horribly confusing, but you'll see this when you're actually running the program. Alright, you'll then save this file so you can update it. Remember, you've got the original from before, but save that if you need to, and that will take care of your index page. You'll do something very similar when you get to the Yurts page as well. And how do I know I'm at the Yurts page? Because if you did this correctly, you called this Yurts inside the title. You're going to do some very similar stuff. You'll turn the page in your book, and you'll actually go to task 4 from your book. That's on the next page. Yes, on the next page. And you'll do some very similar stuff there. There's not quite as much to do in this page. Basically what you're doing in this page is very similar to what you did earlier. There's just not as much involved right here because your nav and your DL, your definition list, your DL, DT, all that is already defined. What you'll do really are 3 items. And again, look at the book. Don't just depend on Mike Sisk and Mike Sisk alone. Look at your book and make sure you're understanding directions. You still got to put the statement that ties the Cascade style sheet, Pacific.css, to your web page. So you want that link statement to be in here. And again, I hope I don't make you dizzy here, but you want that link statement inside the head section that we did earlier, the one that says link ref. You want that in there. And the other thing you want to do is to be sure that your content ID is also there. So again, we put the content ID. If you remember, just refer to your index page again. The content ID is going to be inside the body tags because you want the content to be affected all the way through the page. So again, I'm going down here and I'm pairing up all the body area together for you so you're seeing this. There's body right there. I want to make sure that I have a div that closes down here and a div that opens right here. And just notice the way I'm positioning these. It can be a little mysterious when you're a beginner with CSS, but if you practice it enough, you'll start understanding it. Now, I want that div to be associated with a particular style, and it says to use the one called content. Now, because content, again, showing you again, because content has an ID tag, not a period in front of it, I've got to say ID equals content right here. The closing tag doesn't need it, only the opening tag needs that. And that will set up your web page. So there's not a lot to do here, it's just understanding how to do it. Reading the directions out loud in the book and watching my video many times should help you out. Don't be surprised if you have some mistakes. That happens, and you can ask me questions, but try to relax and enjoy the learning. And I will tell you firsthand from teaching experience, if you'll get out of the mindset that says, I got to make an A, 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 if you can put that on the back burner, it will make your success in getting the CSS correct much more easily handled. And just replay the video as you need to. I hope this will at least give you a little more of an addition and insight to how these directions work. CSS is really probably arguably the hardest part of this course, and once you get into this and get used to it, you'll find it to be much easier, I promise. If you have any questions, of course, contact me. And of course, you want to be sure to save the Yurts page as well, and you'll have all three of these pages inside the folder. Let me know if you have any questions additionally.